Olympic pool for women of the USA, and they all knew it, but yet she never got a chance to show her wares where the world could see. Because she always had some default or some unqualified. It's just so sad. It sucks. I hate that. Or that Zola Budd, remember that one Zola Budd incident? I'm going to forget that. The lady who tripped that, the U.S. lady, I think it was a U.S. lady, tripped her up and caused her to lose. But that was not, I mean, what's up with that? I mean, all of a sudden, all it takes is one person, or you yourself, not to do what you're supposed to do, because in that case, Zola Budd, they drifted lanes. You're not supposed to do that. You're supposed to give people space, or else you trip them up and the whole falling happens. So that's the difference between knowledge and understanding and wisdom, is that it has to be followed up by the most important thing, application. But that's supposed to be a given, that once you have knowledge and understanding and wisdom, why wouldn't you do it? Why wouldn't you do it? It makes no sense. It's the easiest step of the three. The last of the four, I should say. The last step to do is just do it. How hard? I mean, you've obtained, which is the hard part. Then you had depth of understanding what you've obtained. Then you've learned how and when and why what you've obtained, the depth of it, how it interacts together, how it fits in, discernment. All left to do is just do it. Do it. It's kind of like it's kind of like you go, okay, my loved one's dying. What do I do? And you go, okay, got it. I got the information, how to help my loved one live. Okay, now I don't understand exactly how to really understand. I know that it has to deal with this poppy seed and this tree and that root and this thing. Okay. And then you understand, okay, they work together with this dosage of this and this dosage of that, and you make a concoction. You go, I got it. I know the concoction now. Okay, but how do I apply it? How many times a day? And do I do it intravenously? Do I do it with fluid? Do I do it a pill? What's the best way to help them to live, to not die? And they go, I got it. And then you wait a week and you never give it to them. What is wrong with you? You went through all of that? Would you give them the pill? Would you give them the shot? Give them the liquid something? They're dying. What are you doing? You went through all of that. They go, duh. Would you just give them what is wrong with you? Do it. Just give them the drink. It's just, that's what, yeah, sorry. I'm emotional. Yes?
Tracy said Katie McGregor, runner.
No, it's a swimmer.
Ashley, I think is her first name.
Was it Ashley? I want to say Susan for some reason, but I don't know what it was. I remember reading about it years ago and just remembering it, going, "Wow!" I think it was McGregor. I may have the name wrong. I'm just thinking. I know it was a woman, and I know it was a swimmer. That part I know is true. The name I might be misremembering, but I know it was a woman swimmer. That I know. Because I was reading about the Michael Phelps story, and they were talking about on the women's side how great this person was, and that's how I remembered it, because it was reading about him, and they were talking about her on the women's side being like his equal, like she was just dominant, and yet she never got a chance to show it, and how fortunate he was to be able to do that. So, but anyway, so I digress with my emotionalisms. Sorry about that, but that's how God made me, right? So he says in verse 5, anyone again be deficient in wisdom, let him ask, let him petition, constantly ask from God, who imparts, well, that means to give, obviously, freely, to all liberally, which means graciously. Not just give what you ask, but give beyond what you ask or think. Yes?
Vicky said Kristen McGregor.
Is that it? There you go. That sounds like it might be it, if it's a swimmer. If you read about, if it's her, I'm thinking about, you read about her, I actually, my heart went out to her. I was just so saddened by it. Like, man, I mean, to be the best at what you do and your peers know it, but never get a chance to show it to the world, never get a chance to compete when it matters most, that's just got to frustrate you to no end.
2000 NCAA.
Yeah, but she happened to her twice. He said Christine McGregor. It happened twice. I remember it happened at one point in the Olympics. It happened 2 Olympics in a row to her. Twice in a row, she didn't qualify for 2 Olympics. So imagine that. So for 4 years you train and you don't get qualified, knowing you're the best. 4 more years knowing you're the best, you think, okay, this time I got my chance, and you don't qualify again. Now your window's closed because now you're too old to compete with these youngins who are fast. It just is not fair, man. It makes you think that way, but that's just the way life is, So it just wasn't able to be done. And I'm not to make fun of her. I'm just saying that's an example of how you can have all the knowledge and all the understanding, all the wisdom in the world, but until you do it, until you produce results, no one cares. No one cares. Show me the results. You can say, I can say, oh, I know all this about God's word, and I understand this, and I'm wise, and all these things, and yet my marriage is a train wreck. My kids don't care about me, think I'm a jerk, and that's not cool. What? How can that be? How can my life be a train wreck, and how I have my immediacy of what God's given me, is not loved and cared and shown the consideration that God would have of me to do, then what's the purpose of having all that? What's the purpose? There's no purpose in that. There's zero. It's a clanging cymbal again. And that's what Paul's saying. It has to, and then what's the clanging cymbal have in common with knowledge and understanding and wisdom? It has to be accompanied by application. A cymbal has to be accompanied by the application of the orchestra, or else it sounds disgusting. Shut that thing off. I can't take that for over 5 minutes. Sorry. Nobody can. Come on. No one can take that constant and go, it's so soothing. It just speaks to me. It does? It speaks to me like, for 5. It's just, oh my gosh. So you have to apply what you know. Who imparts liberally, again, graciously, which means more than you ever ask. So he'll give you what you ask, but even beyond that. And it says to all, not just to the Jews, or the Jews in Testament at some level of growth, or the Gentiles who didn't worship so many stones or sticks or false gods. No, to anybody in Christ who asks. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're male or female, if you come from Ethiopia, if you come from Judea yourself, or from someplace over in the Asia Minor. He doesn't care where you're from or what your gender is. If you're in Christ and you ask, he'll give you more than you can imagine. Just ask. Continuously ask. He'll give you wisdom of how and when and what to do and discernment. But then you got to do it, though. Ooh, that's the first part. You got to do it back in the first couple verses. Remember, he told you. That's why he starts off with, your job's to do it. Once you get what God gives you, you better apply it, or else that's not a good place to be given gifts and resources and not use them. Ooh, not good. Then he says, and he does not censor. That is oneidizo, which means he does not reproach or revile these people who ask. He doesn't reproach you. People say, I'm afraid to ask God. Why? He's not going to reproach you or revile you. If you ask from the right heart and the right purpose and all that, you can't say, God, give me wisdom to know how to break the law and disobey and be a bad mother and father and husband and come on, don't be ridiculous. If you're praying for right things, you're asking for the right things the right way, he's going to be very gracious to give you that and beyond, and he's not going to revile or reproach you for asking. That's what you see. People misread that and go, well, I can ask for wisdom to know how to win the lottery. I can ask wisdom to know how to get to the high line and have the right ticket on the right guy. Would you stop with that ridiculousness? He's talking about wisdom within spiritual confines of what is right and wrong. Don't be ignorant. So when you ask for what is right consistently, for this wisdom from God to live right, to know him more, to understand his word, he will not reproach or revile you for asking. So some folks believe just by asking God for wisdom, they think that means you're arrogant, or you're being prideful, or you're being presumptuous. And God says, no, just ask. I don't reproach you at all. I never take that as being something that I'm going to revile you for. I'm not going to reproach you for that. So we should always be asking for wisdom. But remember, Nancy said it's true in the Old Testament, before you ask for wisdom, what do you have to have? The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. So you can't ask saying, Lord, I know that you just care about everybody the same, and your word is, tomato, tomato. I don't really believe that people wrote it the right way. They interpreted what you said. Well, you started off the wrong way, my friend. That's not fearing God at all. Fearing God is believing the truth. And you have to believe the Bible is written by men, that God authored it through them. And then if you don't believe that and other things about him that are cold, hard facts, then you don't have no rights asking for wisdom. You got to have fear, my friends. You have to know who he is, what he's done, and what you're asking for. It's based on truth. And when you do that, fine. He won't revile or reproach you. But don't be a fool and act like you can just approach him any way you want. God said he ain't going to revile me at all. Okay. Yeah, within the context of what wisdom is, it's the fear of God's the beginning of wisdom. So how can you ask for wisdom when you don't fear God? That makes no sense. You cannot do that. You got to fear God first. So you have to have a high premium on truth and acceptance of what truth is. Not relativism or liberalism or what you think is right. That's bogus. That's malarkey. Yes?
Pam said, my people do not have because they do not ask. Doesn't mean a new car.
That's right. That's right. It doesn't mean a new car. It means that they don't want to ask. It means you don't have the fear of him that leads to the wisdom of him, that leads to more insight into the biggest thing we want. When he means anything like that, remember, when God talks about direction, he means via Jerusalem. Whenever God talks about you don't have what you don't ask for, he's speaking of the knowledge about him and his word. Because the emphasis of what we need and what we have to have in this life is more of him, living word, and more of his written word. It's that simple. Anything else you want to read into that is bogus. We need more years of life. Really? Hezekiah tried that. It didn't work out. He still died. So what's the point of that? Well, I need more health. Why? Sin brings forth death. I need more money. Why? All wealth comes from God. He disperses it how he pleases. What's that matter to you? Because the real wealth's in heaven. Lay up your treasure in heaven, he says, where moth and thief won't steal and corrupt.
But of course, Solomon laid up his treasure on earth. He made those alliances with those
He did.
kings.
Yeah.
He did.
It's like he's saying, God, you can take a break. This is on me getting this material.
He did, and God loved him. That's why I want to. He's still one of the guys. God. When I see him one day, he's going to like probably want to smack me in the face with a playful slap, like, man, you made fun of me, man. No, I want to talk to him. He's one of the guys in the Old Testament. He's one of the three guys I'd want to talk to. It's Moses and Solomon, the two guys in the Old Testament I want to talk to, and then Job. Those are the three men in the Old Testament, for me, bar none, are the first ones I want to talk to. No, it's Moses, Solomon, and Job because of their distinctness of what they went through. And I want to understand about Solomon going, yeah, dude, I think you are a bonehead, but I want to know why. I know it's just like something just happened overnight. So why did you become this nice, wonderful young man to a bonehead? Walk me through the emotion, the mental state of mind. What happened? I'd like to just know what the heck, man. All we know is one day you go from this great dude to now the Pharaoh's daughter you start building a house for. Huh? What are you doing? At the same time, you're building God's house. You're doing this affair over here. It's just stupid.
He was impatient to acquire these earthly goods.
Yeah, I know. And
not doing it the Lord's way. He wouldn't wait on the
And
Lord
it-
to get, and then he maybe wanted things materially
Well,
that the Lord didn't want him to
Well, I
have.
know where it started from a general standpoint, from him dishonoring his mother, because his mother, he thought, made a bad decision on one of the women that David had as a concubine, and he thought that she was ignorant to not see what she was trying to do, but she did see that. She was just taking the avenue of clemency and love and forgiveness. And so because he belittled her and devalued her, he shut out Bathsheba's influence in his life, who she was the last bastion of truth left in his life. She was the voice of truth and reason of God in his life. She knew above all people what it was like to commit sins and adultery against God, but yet to come back and be restored and live for him. She knew. Women or man, doesn't matter. She was a human being who knew what it was to walk with God and not walk with God, be restored by God, and be in God's glory of blessing. She knew what that was all about and the consequences of not doing that and what that would mean. She knew that. She had so much depth to her, and he shut her out because of one indecision that he thought she didn't make the right one with David's concubine, and what he thought she didn't see what was going on there, that she was trying to usurp the throne. He's like, of course I see that, son. He didn't want to hear it. But that's why in Ecclesiastes he writes about his mom, saying, oh, I wish I coulda, woulda, shoulda kept that relationship. And you know that was like, in his case, I'm not saying every mom's like that, because I'm not saying that, because I experienced that firsthand. That's not the case. But no shot meant to my mom. I'm just saying she's no Bathsheba's. She doesn't have that wealth of depth that she had in the wisdom and knowledge of God. She's a rare woman. That's why Proverbs 31 is written about her, for crying out loud. But she had this wisdom and depth about her that he discounted. What I want to know is what was going through his mind that would make him outweigh the depth of his father's deathbed, telling him there had to be more information we don't know about of them having this tight relationship, him and his mom, to throw it away like that. I'm like, what are you doing, man? There's something else going on that we don't know about? What was going on? What was happening to you? And is that why he had this women thing? It was his way of getting back at his mom and living out his dad's mistakes, as he had multiple, 7 wives himself. I mean, what's the deal with that? I want to ask him all these questions, like, what was it like? How could you go from this great young purity about yourself, and you go from being this great man, this great human, to being a total dillweed? What is wrong with you? What were you thinking? At what point did you not know that was not right? When you wrote the Proverbs, the first part, all this idolatry sense that's viewed through adultery and all this heinous lust and all this stuff that's wrong, you obviously knew it was wrong. So tell me, what were you possibly thinking when you're doing the very thing you're saying not to do?
How old was he when he wrote them?
He was arguably in those like 20 years of age aspects of it, his early part of his life, in his young 20s. So he was seen as a young adult. He was in that young adult phase, but he didn't write the latter part of Proverbs. So he was later on in life. He was in a later maturity. That's why you see it change its venue from the women aspect of it to more other aspects, how to live out your faith. Yes, the women aspect of it is in the first half of the books, if you look at it closely.
You
Yes.
wonder when it was he found out her sins. She literally played the harlot to get David's attention.
I know,
And
but
his older brother died because of her sin.
yeah, but did he hold it against her? I mean, there's none of it. Doesn't. Is that why he turned on her and all this stuff? It's just I want to have a conversation and just ask him all this stuff, this family dynamics, and then get to the place of saying, man, at what point did you, realize that you're just searing your conscience now? When did you go from doing a sin to just saying, I don't care anymore? Because there had to be a point you did that, to have that many wives. There had to be a point where you just go, I don't care anymore. How many wives was it? 2, 4, 10, 12? How many wives was it where you say, you know what? Nah. At what point did that happen? It can't be after the first one. It had to be after a couple of wives, a couple of concubines. At what point did you, because David had 7, he still was supposedly, doing what he thought was right. So that was kind of ornery. That's special. But how did Solomon, there's so many questions I want to ask this guy. Like, I don't get it. How could you have all this knowledge, understanding, and wisdom, and then did you not talk to God? And when you did, how'd that go? Just talk to me. How did you, like suppose I'm God, not that I am, but how did you talk to him? Give me insight into your prayer time with him. How'd you talk to him? Did your attitude change? And if so, when did it happen? When did it change? Did you not sense that in yourself? When did you sense that in yourself? What was it that broke you to write Ecclesiastes? I want to know, what broke you? What made you break to come back? Was it your wife in Song of Solomon who made you come back to the first wife and restore you? Is that what it was? What was it that broke you? Because he broke, by the way. He did. He broke. People don't agree with this, but I certainly see it in the Bible. He broke, and God used a woman to do it. His first wife, to come back and get him restored. He broke, and then God broke him and made him nothing. And he realized that, oh my goodness, it all came back to just honoring, going back to the bearing up under the duress, going back to what God had given from the beginning. Just honor and trust and obey what God gave you from the beginning. He'd have been just fine. But he forsook all that. Anyway, I digress. So many questions to ask. But when you got wisdom, I think, about Solomon. I think we all do to some degree. But then he says, again from verse 5, God will not censure, or he will not reproach or revile. It'll be given to him. So we're almost short of time here. We'll go to verse 6. And he says here, but let him ask in faith, not hesitating. This hesitating is diakrinomeni, which means to have doubt that comes from inner conflict. Do not doubt that comes from inner conflict. In other words, the inner conflict one would have of, I'm not worthy. I've done too many bad things. I'm not smart enough. I'm not good enough. I don't know enough. I'm not that kind of person that gets that kind of benefit from God. You don't understand. My life has never been a place where I can have anything good happen to me. You know Murphy's Law? I'm the punchline. I never was anything in my life. Everybody always told me I was nothing. Stop it. Stop with all that doubt in your mind, inner conflict. That's all lies. All those are lies and lies upon lies. The inner conflict makes you doubt. Or, if it's not the internal questioning of oneself, it's the internal questioning of God himself. Does God really love me because I'm a Gentile? Does he really love me because I'm a Jew? He seemed to say, may his sins be upon our fathers. Does he really love me because we were the ones who actually worshiped sticks and stones and caused the death of many people? Through my ancestors, the Romans, we brought about his death, even though it was blamed upon the hands of the Jews. And is it really God who's going to talk? Do I really want wisdom from a God who took out people from Noah's flood and took out many lives, women and children? I want a God like that. Stop doubting who God is. And stop having this inner conflict of trying to bastardize who he is. Take him for what he is and what he's not. Who he is, not what, but who he is a loving, compassionate God with a high amount of holiness and justice beyond your comprehension. Who he is not is some selfish, arrogant person in your human standpoint. He is selfish and arrogant in a holy, righteous standpoint, and that he demands the attention be on him. And he's arrogant about that because he has the right as the creator. But he doesn't do that in a hard thumb type of way. He does that in a very compassionate way by saying, I'm loving and giving and compassionate to you, to the end of the earth. Why would you not think that I have a right to have all the attention be on me? Because before we got to that point, you were in a bad place because you disobeyed. So I gave you life. You squandered it, and I restored you. So far be it from me that I want to have some attention be on me. All about me, 24/7 me, God says. So yeah, he has a sense of saying it's all about me, 24/7, always will be. That's why he says when you lie down, when you wake up, go back to your way, talk about me. He kind of has a right to do that. Because without his life breath in us, we don't have life breath. We don't breathe. When you combine that with the fact that we started off that way, we went down the path of we don't want to hear about you, God, to now he restores some of us, and we're one of those people he restores. And now we have the audacity to say, I don't like the fact you want to be all about you. He's like, really? If it wasn't, you wouldn't be alive right now. What's your next question? You realize there was no vote. I didn't talk to the clay and go, do you want to come alive? I'm going to make you into a little man. Yes, I am. Yes, I am. Do you want to come alive? Do you? Do you, red clay? Talk to me. You're so cute. You're so, put him there. That's not what happened. He just made the red clay and went da-da-da-da-da and went. And we were like, hey, thanks. And then we had the audacity to go, how's it about you? He's like, you wouldn't even be talking if it wasn't for me. You wouldn't even be a thing. You'd be nothing if it wasn't for me. What part did you miss about the whole? What part did you miss? Because you were just clay before. Nothing. Your energy, your life itself came from me. So yeah, it's about me. Always has been, God would say. Always has been, always will be. All about God. So don't get these doubts in your head that you don't want to have a wisdom from a God like that, or God doesn't want to give you wisdom to a person like you. All those are lies. Those are lies from Satan. He wants you to see God differently than what he is. He wants you to see yourself as lesser than what you are. He wants to devalue God. He wants to devalue you. It's just crazy. And because of that, you're afraid to ask, and you start doubting. You have a which means through, and krenomos means to doubt. So through the doubt inside of you, through the inner conflict inside of you, you have doubt. You hesitate. And by the way, in sports, again, because Paul uses sports quite a bit, and James does as well, you have this aspect of remembering.
Your mic.
Oh, sorry. My apologies. Battery just went dead, what that is.
Pam said, and the wisdom part is being able to recognize that.
Yeah, the wisdom part. Yeah, the wisdom part, being able to recognize that. That's right. So when you think about, what did you say? Sorry?
Well, I was just wondering, how long is that battery life?
I don't know. So that's a different battery. It's been in there for a while. So he says here, don't hesitate. So again, remember, I think of the sporting analogy of what Paul likes to use a lot in our aspect of how we live our faith. He mentioned, like I said, he mentioned about being an Olympian, an athlete who runs not for the perishable crown, one that's imperishable. So when you think about how we live our life, talk about being a soldier in the faith, and to Timothy later on. But you think about what James is writing about here, and don't hesitate, think about an athlete. I always use this term about good athletes or good sports teams. And the best way to see an athlete on an island, and the best way possible, is in tennis. Because in every other sport, there's always a coach involved, there's interaction with another human being involved who can actually help you to get recalibrated in your mindset. In golf, you got a caddy. In sports of football and baseball and soccer and in basketball, you have teammates. But in tennis, you're out there on your own, Jack. You're all alone. You're on an island. You're on your own when you're playing singles. It's just you and the hot sun, and you have to trust your training and your way of approach, and you have to execute. So when it talks to hesitate, if you hesitate to execute, it's going to cost you a point, or whatever it is you want to call it, a bad situation. So the point I'm making is, you have what I call thoughtless execution. You have to be so well trained that you just don't think, you just do. You have to be so well disciplined, so well harnessing the habits that you forged that they become second nature. So when he says don't hesitate in your faith, it speaks to the fact that you have not forged. Remember that? Remember that? He is the good shepherd. There's a path of righteousness he leads us back to, and that path has to first be forged before he leads us back to it. Because that path he forges in your life is when you build like a moat, like an oxen does as he grinds the mill. So you have to constantly be grinding at the mill, forging a habit of what it looks like to have thoughtless execution. You have to not even think about it, but just be doing the things that you know are right, because you have forged habits. Forge habits in your life that show that you believe and trust in God, that you can look back to and say, I don't do it right all the time, but I know when I've done it right, this is what I've done, and continue to repeat those things. And I haven't done it right all the time, but when I have obeyed God, I did it when I had these things happen. And start to take reflection of those things, and start to build on those things, and make those things your habit. Because when those things are your habit, there's no inner conflict, because it becomes just a thoughtless execution. You begin just to do the things that you're habitually training your brain to do. You just do them. Og Mandino writes books about this, the greatest salesman in the world. He writes in there that you think your way, you act your way into thinking right, and you also think your way into acting right. Both are true. You have to have this execution of what you do as a habit that leads you back to righteousness and success. Yes?
Pam said tennis and golf, both Jacob's sports.
Say it again?
They were good for him because he is a very shy guy, and it made him excel out there alone without being isolated by a large team presence.
Oh, tennis. You said tennis made Jacob excel. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah, see, there you go. See, It really does. It challenges because tennis is the only. What's that?
Tennis and golf.
Yeah, I think tennis to me is the most demanding sport, and it's the greatest thing. I think it's the greatest thing any human could ever do when it comes to athletics, because it's the only thing that you can actually be challenged in every capacity, mentally, physically, agility, endurance, all of it. Strategy is involved. Everything is involved in that sport when you're doing singles that you do not get the same level of gravity in every other sport. That one is the most tremendous to me, in my opinion. Yes.
And she said insulated and not isolated.
That's good. Yeah, I got you.
Dad and I, when we lived in Phoenix, we went to Wickenburg, which was for our anniversary, and I said, let's play tennis. He said, well, I can't do that. So we got a whole bunch of tennis balls, and he threw them for me. I'm telling you.
You're running around?
He'd throw about 10, and I'd gather them up. He'd throw them strategically.
Yeah.
He was that way, right?
And think about when he says here, don't hesitate. And since we're talking about tennis, I'll give you a contrast to what he says in chapter 1, verse 6 there, when he says, if you hesitate or if you have internal conflict, you'll doubt, and that doubt is like a wave of the sea, agitates you and tosses you like the wind. So the wave of the sea there, by the way, the word wave means surge. So a surge of the sea, and then wind hits it, and that water goes where? Everywhere. When your surge goes, whoo, and I get a big gust of wind, where's that water go? If you've been on a boat before, or been by the beach before, and a wave crashes in, and then the wind comes in. By the way, I baptized somebody in February, which is very cold, by the way, in Florida, and the water, it's like 40 degrees in the water, and it was like, and I was in there, and I was, in the name of the Father, and I went like this. I remember the wind, the waves went splash on me, and I was like, oh no, we ain't doing this. And once I got him under, I said, good luck with that. And I went back. He floated onward, seriously, about maybe 5 feet out. He came back laughing at me. I'm like, oh, I'm not, this is cold, man. And I was like, cold. And the wind was blowing. The entire wave that came in on me, it went splash up in me. Then the wind sprayed all the other little particles of water all over me. And it's like knives through your skin. And you imagine, so that's what he's talking about when he says a wave, it's a surge of water, and then wind catches it. So you're like that water. You're everywhere when you have inner conflict and doubt. You're all over the place. You're like, God wants me to do this, no that, oh, no, and you don't do anything because you're so scattered with your thoughts. And that's what he says inner conflict does. It brings doubt, and then doubt brings this scatter blot of your action, which is basically inaction, because you have so many multiple choices, you don't know what to do. And that goes back to when you do tennis, by the way, go back to that tennis analogy, we'll end with this. I remember my favorite tennis player, one of my favorite ones, was Andre Agassi, because he went from that rebellious kid to a conformed person, and he got to be more successful. I like that whole journey of his life, his brokenness, and then restoration to a human. So, and what he did for kids down in South Florida has been tremendous too. That's why I like him. Anyway, but at first I liked him because of his rebelliousness, but I was like that when I was a kid. So, but his dad said, he said his dad, when he was a little kid, he took the tennis machine to the net line and had it go off on him and said, return that. He's like, what? He wasn't shooting the machine off from the other side of the baseline. He got the machine to the net and was shooting it at him. And that's how he got so good at being one of the best returners in the game has ever seen, because he was used to seeing that speed so much quicker than most people. So that goes to how, thinking about how his dad trained him to have thoughtless execution. He was able, after time, to overcome the frustration and the anger of that, and he got to realize the spit on the ball and what to expect. So when you take the adversity God puts you through and the trial God puts you through, and you see it the way God wants you to see it to help better you and not frustrate you, you'll be able to go, oh, I've been here before. I've seen this movie before. I've been in this scene before. I know what happens next. I know what to do and what not to do. And you'll become so proficient if you use the adversity and the challenge God gave you the right way. It makes you a wonderful, much greater human being. When you resist it and object to it, it'll make you a bitter, sourpuss human being. You don't want the latter. You want the first one. Agassi chose the first one to be a better human being from it, and he became known as one of the best returners in the game. But you look back at the parenting and you go, boy, that was kind of harsh parenting, because it wasn't encouraging to him to feel like he could never get a ball back. It was very discouraging to him. But he had to overcome that discouragement, overcome the frustration, the anger, and then finally realize, you know what, he's not going to stop doing this. I might as well just go ahead and find a way to get around this. And he got good at returning the ball back. as we should realize God's not going to stop trying and testing us. He's not going to stop. This is a classroom of this earth to learn us and teach us. So you better embrace the test. Embrace the teacher's ways. Get better at what it is that he's giving you to do and learn to embrace it and become a person who excels in that area. And don't be like that surge of wind that catches that wave and just goes whoosh, and scatters you everywhere in your thoughts. That inner conflict is doubt, and doubt makes you hesitate. Hesitation makes it so you don't walk in faith. So yes, sorry. Go ahead, babe. Sorry.
First of all, Vicky said, I played both, and while I agree with you about tennis, golf is equally as demanding, because in tennis you can miss it and still get a winner point off that. But in golf, if you miss hit, you are in immediate trouble. And then Pam said, right, but my comment pertains to Jacob having to overcome his insecurities to be out there alone in the limelight, of all to perform alone, unlike a volleyball team where he would be surrounded by others. And Vicky said, I agree, Pam, my comment was in general. And Pam said, okay, sorry.
And my comment's not in a specific sense of the mentality, the mental struggle. I'm referring to every aspect. You check every box off in tennis of what's required. You can miss a box and still be a good golfer. As in not being fit. You do not have to be cardiovascularly the best of a human to be a good golfer. John Daly proves that. He can drive the ball like nobody's business, but the dude's out of shape like nobody's business, right? So you could be someone in decent shape, but you have to be in pristine shape and cardiovascular shape to be a tennis player at the height of your game. You don't have to be top of your game cardiovascular to be a good golfer. You just don't. So mentally, yes, there's the equivalence. I get that. What I'm talking about is the width and depth that tennis requires on the mental, the physical, the cardiovascular, all of it. You're alone, by the way. And remember, at least in golf, you got a caddy you can talk to. You can talk to them constantly between holes. You can't talk to your coach like ever during the game, like ever. It could last 4 hours, and you're out in the hot sun. You get shade in golf a little bit. You get a little caddy action going on, a little talk on the side. You get none of that with tennis. You're out on your own. You're an island. Good luck with that. When the game's over, we'll talk later on when the game's over. Yeah.
Vicky said, that is true. I love tennis the most.
Yeah, so that's what I mean by that. That's what I mean. It's just a challenge in multiple ways, and I think a little deep. But it's a good point about the golf aspect. You're right about it. Everybody, they all have their niches. I'm just saying that tennis is the most broadest and deepest of its demands on the human being, in my opinion. The breadth and depth of the demands on the human psyche and physicality is just unparalleled, in my opinion. I think basketball comes closest to that a little bit, but not the same. Anyway, off the sports analogies, but just want to end with that chapter 1, verse 6. We'll pick it up on remember, not this Sunday, but the Sunday after. So we will not be together until, actually, the first Friday, actually, in March. Yeah, that's right. March, whatever that is. 3rd, 2nd? Yes.
Vicky said swimming can be like that, too.
Yeah.
Are you still projecting March for the move?
Yes, they are. They're projecting March for the move. CenturyLink finally gave me a contract to sign last week, this week I should say, that I signed, and that usually means they're within 6 weeks of moving us. And then the owner, landlord guy, is putting pressure on them to let's go. So he wants to move. It'd be ideal to move when we're on the vacation part, where we can be coming back to that gives them time to do all that too. Who knows? I'm gonna let him know that too, so he can spearhead. No. Everything's being moved. Everything will be pristine, ready to go, turnkey. The only thing is I have to put them on the walls. Yes, all the pictures have to be hung, but they'll be over there. So the ideal thing is one day I will come back, and then on Sunday it'll be just, I got to hang these. That's it. Everything's moved though. It'll be the same carpet, same wood floor, lighting. Everything's gonna be the same. It'll just be a different room. That's what our deal was. So anyway, let's close and pray, and we'll end our time. Sorry I went over and got a little tangents from time to time. So Father, we thank you for your insight, your love, and your guidance through your word, and help us to be encouraged and to be always to ask upon you things that we know that you're a great God, and you are a very loving, compassionate God, and that we know we don't deserve anything, but we also know that you tell us to ask. And so because you tell us to, we want more of you. And we want more things that lead us to a habit of doing things that are right. So forge in us habits to think and do what is right. Ask us to continue to seek and knock and just look to you for things that you can provide about insight to you and to your word. and just be grateful for what we already have been given, and to live out what we do know. But know that that wisdom that you do impart to us through that knowledge and through that understanding, that we have to actually, through wisdom and discernment, to actually do it. So have us to do it. Have us to consider it done that you're there, and have us to live and do what we know is right. And just bear up under it all, and yet still produce the result of showing action, showing results, showing obedience and trust through it all. We thank you for who you are and what you do, and ask that you be with us throughout the week and bring us back together so we'll be apart for a little while longer, keeping us all the more faithful and dedicated to you. In Jesus, Yeshua's name we pray. Amen. Sorry.
Pam said question and answer that night. And
Oh.
I think you said, can you repeat it?
Yes, we will. You're right. You're right about that. There'll be Q&A. That's right. There'll be Q&A. The first time we get back together will be the first Friday in March, and that will be our Q&A. So the first Friday in March, which will be March the 2nd, I do believe, we will have our Q&A. So the first Friday we're back, March the 2nd, will be Q&A, and we'll do that on Friday. Then the following, that first Sunday in March will be our communion. Do you always stop this?